everybody, Tiny House Dreaming here. It is Saturday, January 27th, and I am here to give you the first part of the video that I promised last week. So today I'm going to be letting you guys know how I ended up in the van. That's a big question that I get. I think the most asked question by multiple people. So I'll be explaining that today. And I've tried to make this video a couple times and it keeps running over 30 minutes. So I have my little notebook here and I'm going to just try to stay on topic, but make sure that I don't leave too much out. But first of all, I would like to tell you, in order to really give you a reason of why I ended up in my van, I'm going to have to take you back in the past a little bit. Okay, so from 2004 to 2012, I worked in corporate America, and I made pretty good money. I was making like over $30 an hour. But I found myself in I guess what they call the rat race, where I was working to live and I was living to work and not working to live. Every day was just very repetitive. I had a lot of responsibilities, so even when you clock out at the end of the day, you still take your work home with you. Things never stop. You still get phone calls. You have to sit in meetings with CFOs. You have to analyze this, have reasons for different things. And it was just a lot of responsibility, and I guess that comes with making good money. But I found myself just constantly working to pay bills and never really taking time out other than 2 weeks a year to enjoy anything that life had to offer. So with that being said, that's kind of where my life was. And in 2011, I met somebody that was from Mexico, and he had explained to me about tiny home, or no, not tiny homes, container homes. And he was saying how, a lot of developers are building container homes in Mexico for low income people or whatever. And that kind of sparked my interest, wow. Because, me being Buddhist, I always kind of believed in minimalist living. But again, to say that I got caught up in have a nice apartment, have a nice car, furniture, all of that stuff. But you're never really home to enjoy those things because you're constantly at work working to pay for those things. So it's kind of just a vicious cycle that a lot of people find themselves in. Now, if you have a family, it's different because you have kids that can be home and enjoy those things, and you're working for, your children to build a better future for them. But for me, in my case, I don't have kids. So it's I was literally working to say that I had these things, but I was never home to really enjoy those things. I was always at work. So in 2011, when I met this guy and he told me about container homes, I started kind of looking more into that. Something sparked right away when he was telling me about this. Wow, I could act. And even though I was listening to what he was saying, I was in my head thinking about me being in the container home. And so I started researching, how much does it cost to buy shipping containers? How much does it cost to convert? Are they legal to convert in the United States? Where do you put them once you, where can you legally have them be? And so I kind of looked into all those things. And at that moment, or that point, over the couple months that I was researching these things, I hadn't ever heard of a tiny home. So early 2012, and I had started talking to coworkers and friends and stuff about this container house, I heard about this, that's awesome. And so 2012, one of the people that I was, telling and so excited to talk about the container homes, they had an article or something they showed me about tiny houses. And that was my first experience or ever hearing about tiny houses, which are basically built like traditional homes, just on a very smaller scale. So that sparked even more with me. I was already excited about the container homes, but the tiny houses, I was and the house, the picture of where, I think it was an article or a magazine or something they showed me. I can't remember exactly, but it had a picture of a little house, and I'll never forget the way the little house looked. And it was the cutest little house, and it was on permanent foundation. And I was just even more so than the container home, it just spoke to me. And ever since then, you see the title of my YouTube page is Tiny House Dreaming. it just never left me. You know, like the idea just kept growing and growing in my head. Like I would wonder about it, and like this is when I still was in corporate America. So like I would kind of like daydream off during break or during my lunch or whatever as I'm across the street at the deli eating a sandwich. Like I would be thinking about tiny houses. I would constantly be Googling them. And at that time, there wasn't a lot, like I'm saying back in 2012, 2013, like I think that was like early stages of it becoming like popular where a lot of people have heard of it now because there's like TV shows and everything dedicated to it. But back then, when I used to Google and I used to go to like the library or Barnes and Noble and look for books, there weren't a lot. There were a few people putting out, you know, information about how to build them and things, but there weren't a lot of stuff to be found like there is today. Like you can YouTube and find tons of people that are, you know, showing their journey. You can go find a lot of books at Barnes and Nobles about it, but back then there wasn't a lot. So like I would constantly try to, you know, I would be online and on my smartphone and looking for information. I wasn't really finding a lot, so I would try to like contact different developers and see, and a lot of people weren't interested in building tiny homes at that time. So it was kind of like a slow, steady progression of like developing information about it. And lo and behold, I worked for Sutter Health. Like I'm trying to be as transparent as possible here. So I did work for Sutter Health when I say I worked in corporate America. And I worked in the business office. And at the time I worked in Oakland, California, in one of the biggest hospitals that they have. One of the floors was dedicated to their business offices. So I worked, you know, in the hospital, but I didn't have any kind of direct patient care or anything like that, or even patient care at all. But the department was growing and they wanted to like double the size, and they wanted it instead of being in a hospital, because every now and then we found like patients and we were like right below the psych ward or like the detox ward. So we had like people that would stop on the elevator and like they would kind of like be in a business department and have sensitive information. We weren't in the best place to, you know, keep things private. So they wanted to move their department out to Roseville, which is closer to like Sacramento. And it's not like Sacramento is a huge city in the surrounding area, but it's not like the city going up, like kind of San Francisco and Oakland have like the high rises and stuff like that. So I just was not, and at this time I was kind of getting burnt out of corporate America. I just wasn't I did not want to continue staying in corporate America. So, for anybody who wanted to keep their job, they said, you know, you can keep your job and you'll just report to this new building once we move the department. But they gave us about an 8-month notice. And they said anybody who doesn't, will give you a severance package. So what I did once, like immediately when they told us that, and I heard what the severance package was, it was a really awesome, like I cannot say anything bad about Sutter Health. It was an awesome severance package. I immediately jumped on that, and I knew that that was going to be the option. I mean, they didn't want to know right then that, you know, they said, we're letting you know so you can think about it, figure out if you want to move, not move, or what you want to do, if you want to go to another company, you know, blah, blah, blah. So I knew that I would be taking a severance package because I was already burnt out of corporate America. And I was like, this is the perfect thing. So if I begin now, which was like about 6 to 8 months prior to this happening, if I begin now kind of dialing my lifestyle back, I can actually live off of the severance package, quit this job, not have to go back into another job in corporate America. And I can actually start like doing things that I've been wanting to do, like explore, go travel, figure out different crafts that I like, find hobbies, you know, just enjoy life. Instead of just the repetitiveness of getting up and going to work just to pay bills to go back to work again. So ultimately, to skip forward, that's what I ended up doing, is taking a severance package, and I stopped working in corporate America in November of 2012. And so from November 2012 to June of 2015, I didn't have to work. Like I literally just did what I said I was going to do, enjoyed life. And in the midst of that, I like was crafting and doing different things and finding different artsy things that I was into. And so I would always be back and forth into Joann's craft and fabric store because they happened to be like right down the street from where I lived at. So they were the most convenient place to like go find different crafty things to try, or, you know, to continue crafting or whatever. So I was in there so much, sometimes multiple times a day, that I got to know the store manager. So she was like, finally, like, you're in here so much. Why don't you just come work part-time, like 15 hours a week, maybe not even that. And you can get the employee discount and have a little pocket money to spend on more arts and crafts stuff. You know, she was like, it's perfect. You're always in here. And she said, I have a stocking position open, so you don't really have to deal with the public. Like, you can come in 3-4 o'clock in the morning and be out by the time we open the store. So, you know, and it would literally just give you a few more dollars. And, you know, she didn't know my past, if I had money or didn't have money or whatever. So she was kind of just being cool. And like, I'm always a people's person, so I like to talk to people and stuff. So like, we were always chit chatting, and she would share ideas with me, and I would tell her what I'm into or what I'm doing today. So it kind of just worked out. So I said, you know what, that sounds good. And then I knew that all this time I had kind of still been looking into tiny houses, and there were more information coming through the internet, and like more people posting on YouTube about it. There were more books, like, you know, over from 2012 into 2015. So there was more information that I was gathering, like, okay. And once I started getting a lot of information, I knew that, like, my heart still in 2015, I knew that's where I wanted, like, that was my ultimate goal. So so I took the job, and I was like, you know, this can just be money that I'm saving. And eventually I knew I was going to either have to go back to work somehow, because, you know, my severance pay was going to start you know, running out at some point. And like I said, I wasn't working for all those years. I mean, I guess you can say like 2013, since it was the end of 2012. So for like 2.5 years, I wasn't working, and I knew that I was going to have to do something. And I was kind of dreading having to go back to like a corporate America type job and to make money where I'm paying my bills, because, you know, California is not cheap to live off of. So even though it was a nice severance package, it was running out. So when she offered me that, I was like, wow, so that's kind of cool. That can supplement some of my income, and it's kind of just like an easy peasy job. I can be in and out. I don't have to really take anything home, and I still have, if I'm getting off before the store opens, I still have all this time during my days to enjoy life. So that's what I did. I accepted the job, and I started working at Joann's on the stocking team. And about 1.5 years into it is when I became full-time and took on the role of stocking manager or inventory controller, which they call it. But on November 17th of 2017, just past November, my uncle that lives in Salt Lake City, Utah, he was just like, you know what? I brought a van, and I already have 3 vehicles, but it was such a good price, and it ran so good, I couldn't pass up on it. So I think I'm going to bring it to you. And, you know, meanwhile, you know how you talk to your family and like let them know, you know, this is really what I want to do in my dream or whatever. And so he knew that, like, I had been watching videos about van dwelling, which I found maybe like the summer of 2017. Like, up until then, I've been researching tiny houses, and I never had even fathomed about van dwelling, like never crossed my mind. So on YouTube, I started, as I was like looking at tiny houses, I started getting like suggestions, and they were van dwelling suggestions, but at first I never heard about van dwellers. So I was like, what is this? So like one day I just clicked on one, and I think it was Van Dwelling Brandon was the first person I ever like watched a video of. And then, like, you know, as I watched his, like other people would start popping up. So I ended up like finding out about van dwelling. And so, you know, I started mixing that into my conversation. Like, that would kind of be cool to like start my tiny house journey van dwelling, and that would give you like a pretty cheap, like, I mean, because it's not cheap to build a tiny house. I mean, you have to really kind of go all in and know that that's what you want to do, because you're putting a good amount of money into building those. Or even if you buy one that's pre-built or something, like, it's not cheap. Where a used van to live in is a lot cheaper, and it's going to give you the foundation to know that, okay, this is the lifestyle that I want. It's not, I mean, while a tiny house has more amenities than a van, if you can survive in a van and enjoy your time in a van, then you'll definitely be happy in a tiny house. It's giving you still that small space to live in, but it actually has a bathroom and a shower and, you know, different things that a home offers. Whereas a van, you don't have those things. So I kind of started looking into, let that be my first step, is me living in a van. And so when he brought me this van, like, everything just worked out, and it all happened quick. I got the van on November 17th, and I think that was like a Saturday. And I started living in my van on December 5th. So not even 2 weeks later, but I knew that he was gonna bring me the van, like towards the end of October. So I was able, like he told me, I can't take off of work because he owns his own company. So he said I can't take off of work. I have clients and stuff to deal with, but on this day I can actually take the weekend, bring you the van, and then fly back home. So that's what he ended up doing. So I kind of started preparing to live in the van on November 5th. And I was already so deep into my rental agreement of the townhouse I was staying in that I was able to just give a month, 30 days notice. I didn't have to give wait till the year was up or anything like that, because I had been living there for like a good 8 years at that point. So that's ultimately how I began living in my van. It starts at my dream for a tiny house, and I think that this is a good first step. And since I've been living in my van, I'm almost at the 2-month mark, and I have no complaints whatsoever. I would completely do this all over again. I'm not looking back. And the next step from here is to be in my tiny house. And so I'm gonna make a second video explaining how I'm gonna achieve that dream. So there you have it. There's my van life story, all in a nutshell. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and please take the time to watch the next video. And thank you for taking the time to watch all of my videos, to subscribe. If you aren't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. I got a lot of interesting things coming up, which you'll hear about in my next video. So talk to you guys soon.